So one of my more recent videos was a response video to Rich of Review Tech USA, who made a video talking about how consoles are obsolete in 2017. If you saw that video, you would know that I had some serious issues with Rich's points and the message that he was spreading in that video, saying that consoles shouldn't exist in 2017 and that there's no purpose of them existing because they're essentially becoming PCs, and because there's no convenience factor anymore, that means that there's no point at all of owning a console. And the main issue I had with that, well, besides the fact that he was playing Ratchet and Clank on the PS4 and also talking about how he planned on getting the Xbox One X, made him seem a bit convoluted. But the main problem I had with his video wasn't necessarily his convoluted arguments as much as it was how extreme his statement was, that there's no point at all of owning a game console in 2017. So because of that alone, I really didn't take anything he said at face value, because that's a very extreme statement to make, and he didn't prove that main argument very well. But besides that, he did bring up a good point in that video when he was talking about convenience and how consoles have lost their convenience factor over the years. It got me thinking for a while. He made a good point that consoles are kind of losing their identity. They've been slowly losing their identity over the past few years. And it makes me think that there's one other aspect of console gaming that we have lost, and not many people really talk about it. That, of course, is local multiplayer or split screen. If you've seen the video I made last week titled What Gaming Means to Me, you might recall that I was reminiscing on one of the earliest gaming memories I have, which is playing Star Wars Episode 1 Racer on the N64 against my sister. Of course, that was a split-screen game. I played against my sister via split screen. Back then, there was no online, none of that crap. It was just two people with two controllers playing against each other in the same room. You have older people talking about how we're too connected on the internet. We don't really go outside and we don't interact with people in real life. But I feel like back in the day, we had the best of both worlds. We got to play video games for countless hours, constantly glued to our screens, but we always had someone by our side in real life playing with us. So that's an experience that can never really be replicated online over the internet. It just can't. And I think that's why it's such a shame that local multiplayer is dead. I had such great memories in my life of just playing games with people in real life with a second controller. Now I don't own a second controller for my PlayStation 4. I don't own a second controller for my Xbox One. And people, whenever someone comes over to my house, they always ask me, well, why do you only have one controller? It's because there's no fucking games. There's no games that you can even use the second controller for. There's only really 3 exceptions I can think of where local multiplayer still exists. One being Nintendo. You have the Nintendo Switch, heavily focused on local multiplayer. But I don't own a Nintendo Switch, so that doesn't really apply to me, and it doesn't apply to a lot of people either. Another game genre that I can think of that still has local multiplayer is sports games. Sports games, of course, most of them have local multiplayer in it. It's just natural for local multiplayer to exist in these games because it makes really little sense for it not to. It just seems like it doesn't take much effort on their part to add in local multiplayer and whatever. And honestly, in my opinion, sports games are my favorite local multiplayer games because you don't need split screen. It's all in one screen. And that's what I always liked about playing sports games and games like that, where you don't really need split screen. You're just fighting each other or playing each other in a game. So I've always loved sports games. I always loved playing local multiplayer in those games. And the third exception to local multiplayer being dead, of course, is Call of Duty. Split screen is still a thing in Call of Duty games from what I know. I'm pretty sure Infinite Warfare had it. And recent Call of Duty games have had it. It never went away. You have co-op and zombies. You have, you could 1v1 someone split screen. You could even go online with someone in split screen. I did that with my sister all the time in Black Ops 1. We used to go online together, and she totally fucking sucked. But it was still a fun experience. And we also played zombies together online with 2 other people, and the 2 other people always flipped the fuck out because she always died. My sister sucked ass at Call of Duty, and she still does. Hope she's not watching this. Say what you want about Call of Duty. I personally never plan on buying a Call of Duty game ever again, considering the current state of the Call of Duty franchise. But I still appreciate the fact that Activision is keeping split screen and local multiplayer alive. You gotta commend them for that, because for a lot of companies, it just doesn't seem worthwhile for them to do it. But this is one of those things where I can't really blame the game developers and publishers, or whoever's in charge of what features are in and out of the game. I can't really blame them for the decline and death, essentially, of local multiplayer. I can't really put the finger on them. I actually put the finger on society as a whole for being so connected to the internet and not really caring about real-life interaction and not really valuing it as much as they used to. So a few days ago, I conducted a Twitter poll, and the results were pretty interesting, so let's take a look at that. Alright, so let's see what we got here. Is local multiplayer, split screen, an important feature to you when deciding to buy a certain game? Look at the results here. 70 votes, 24% said yes, and a whopping 76% said no. Wow. I was personally a bit shocked by the results. I thought that people still valued local multiplayer in some way, but that doesn't seem like the case. Only 24% of my voters said that local multiplayer was important to them. So, wow. Let's just read the responses. So, Shadow Warrior says it really depends on the game. That's understandable. Venomous Doggo says not at all. No one to play with. That's actually very interesting. Very interesting comment, because if you don't really have anyone to play local multiplayer with, then there's really no point for you to get a local multiplayer game. And that kind of goes back to the point I made earlier about how we're more connected to the internet, we're less, I guess you could say, extroverted, and we don't really value real life social interaction as much as we did, let's say, 10, 20 years ago, especially like 20 years ago, before the rise of the internet. Joey Crossan says yes and no. I like to get certain games just to play locally, but it's not like I'm going to care if, let's say, GTA doesn't. Sweet Feathery says, my wife and I love split-screen couch games like Borderlands, but I understand we are in the minority. And that's what it seems like. It seems that the local multiplayer market is very niche market. People are pretty neutral towards local multiplayer. If it's in the game, that's fine, but if it's not, that's also fine. It's one of those things that the general consumer seems pretty neutral about. It's not a very controversial issue. You never see so much outrage when, let's say, a certain game skips local multiplayer or doesn't have it in the game. There's not too much outrage when it's not there. You don't really see it. So the Meech says, that's odd. I thought there would be more people in favor of local split screen. I thought the exact same thing, actually. Wheelers13 says depends. If it's for Mario Kart or games like that, then it is a deciding factor. Yeah, because Nintendo's known for local multiplayer, so it would make no sense for them to not have it. Liam Lacey says not really, but it's a massive plus if it does. Again, pretty neutral comment. Josh Goggett413 says it's a good benefit, but ultimately, no. Again, more neutral comments. So it seems like people like local multiplayer. They think it's good, but they're not going to really care too much if it's not in the game because they have online gaming. Back when local multiplayer was really, really, really popular, there was no Xbox Live, there was no PlayStation Network, there was none of that. It was just real-life interaction. But I never understood why they both can't exist together in harmony. Why do you have to have one but not the other? I guess people are just so hooked on the internet that people just forgot about real-life interaction. So Nick Stonesy87 says it depends on the game. Some games lend very well to split screen multiplayer, some don't. Also, CJ, keep up the good work since your return. Thank you, Nick. I really appreciate that. It really is a shame, isn't it? I love playing online. I love playing with people over the internet. It's a really good experience. Some of my best gaming memories is playing online multiplayer. But I also have so many great memories playing split screen with my friends in real life. It's just a real shame that I won't really be able to do that again unless I pop in the old PS2 or the old PS3 or whatever. But it's just not the same. Not having new contemporary games that offer this feature is a real blow to the industry. I mean, it might not have any financial repercussions, but if you really think about it, it really shows what gaming has come to. And you can't really blame the developers and the big corporations for all of this. I think that all parties are responsible for what gaming has become. I think, yes, the greedy corporations are responsible for what's been happening, but you also have to hold the gamers themselves responsible to an extent. I mean, they let this shit happen. They let all the DLCs and microtransactions run rampant. They don't do anything about it. What they do instead is support it. They keep buying the microtransactions in $60 full-price games. They keep buying all the new DLC, even if it's on-disc DLC, that obviously was supposed to be in the original game, but they decided to sell it separately. And all this bullshit. And then on top of that, you have people who just don't care that you can't interact in real life with people anymore playing video games. It's just crazy to me that nobody cares. I mean, some people do care, but not enough to make a difference. It's just a real shame, honestly. And it also affects console gaming the most because PC gaming was never known for local multiplayer. It was never known for having split screen. It was mostly known for LAN parties, which was a great feature. And they still do have LAN parties, of course, especially with competitive gaming. But, man, local multiplayer and split screen was a real part of console gaming's identity. And that's one part of Rich's video that I actually can't really disagree with. I just think that he could have done a much better job presenting his points. But, man, it's just a real blow to console gaming that local multiplayer is essentially dead. And what's even more crazy is that people just don't seem to care. It's not like it's making people switch from console to PC. When people make the switch from console to PC, they don't say, oh, yeah, it's because local multiplayer is dead. You never really hear that. They always cite the frame rate or the locked platform. That's really what because the interviews I've done with PC gamers, with former console gamers turned PC gamers like Bullet Barry, like Fratanga, they've always talked about how they like PC gaming being a more open platform, but no one really talks about switching to PC because console gaming doesn't have local multiplayer. Like, no one seems to care about that. And it's a shame because that was one advantage that console gaming has always had over PC, if you really think about it. Okay, so I grew up during the 6th generation of consoles, like I said. One of the first games I got was Sonic Heroes on the PS2. I got 3 games. It was The Hobbit, the ATV Awful Fury 2, which had split screen, and I played the shit out of the split screen with my sister. We always did races and all this other shit together with the ATVs. And also, Sonic Heroes actually had local multiplayer. It might have not been impressive, but it was there. And I always played it with my mother. She always played it with me when I was a 6-year-old kid getting my PS2. And I just have so much great memories with it. And I'll talk about even more memories I have. So, Star Wars Battlefront 2. The original one, not the one that's coming up. I never got to experience Star Wars Battlefront 2 online, which is something that I will always regret, because I never knew how to hook my PS2 online. I never did. It was, I guess, too complicated for me. I didn't even know that PS2 had online until the PS3 was out, so yeah, I didn't really get to play the PS2 online, and it's a shame because I heard that PS2 games online were really fun, but I never got to experience it. I never got to experience Battlefront 2 online. But what I did experience instead was split screen Battlefront 2. I had people over, I had friends over, we used to always play against each other. You guys had no idea how many people I I made play that game against me because I absolutely loved that game. That's one of my favorite games of all time, easily. Battlefront 2 and Battlefront 1 also. Battlefront 1 is I actually prefer over Battlefront 2, which is for some reason odd to some people. People don't understand why I prefer 1 over 2, but I've said in the past I prefer the land maps in Battlefront 1 over the land maps in Battlefront 2. Yeah, the space battles are cool, but I just prefer Battlefront 1. I think the maps are much better in general, and I just prefer its overall presentation. But that's a side thing. But yeah, I had so much fun playing the original Battlefront games, and most of that fun was from local multiplayer. I didn't have online, but even if I did have online, I still think I would have had more fun playing local multiplayer. But man, I can spend a full day just talking about my split-screen memories on the PS2. It's just crazy how much fun I've had playing local multiplayer. But I'm sure you guys noticed that this gameplay is not bootleg Overwatch, it's Killing Floor 2. The game was free last month on the PlayStation Store. I decided to add it to my library on June 30th, so it'd still be free, and then I downloaded it like a week ago. And I've been enjoying it a lot. It's a pretty good game. It's really fun. It's kind of like a more advanced version of Call of Duty Zombies. I think like if Call of Duty Zombies and Left 4 Dead had a beautiful love child, it would probably be Killing Floor 2, because Killing Floor has the cool boss battles and all the other stuff that you know from Left 4 Dead. And it also has the, I guess, feel of Call of Duty Zombies, except it's a lot more customizable. There's so many more weapons. There's so much you can do. You have perks and all this other stuff. Killing Floor 2 is a really good game. My expectations of the game were pretty low, to be honest with you, because I just thought it was going to be another zombie game, killing zombies that hasn't been overdone, right? But it actually is a pretty good game. So I decided to include Killing Floor 2 gameplay footage for that reason and another reason. And that other reason is because this is kind of related to my video in a way. Killing Floor 2 is a co-op game, 6 players killing zombies together. Now, obviously, the PC version of the game naturally is going to have higher performance and is generally going to be the better version of the game. And that is the case with Killing Floor 2. The PC version is better than the PS4 version. But back in the day when there was a multi-platform game and the PC version had better graphics and was overall better performance, the console versions of the game still had an advantage over the PC version in the sense that you had split screen, you had local multiplayer, which was a big deal back in the day. But now it doesn't seem like anybody cares. So Killing Floor 2 does not have split screen. It does not have local multiplayer or anything like that. It's just online only. They do have offline, but you can't play with other controllers, which I think personally is dumb. But that would have been a huge advantage that the PS4 version had. That kind of made the PS4 version more viable than it would without local multiplayer. But sadly, split screen local multiplayer is not found in the console version of Killing Floor 2, which really shows what happened to the industry and how much it's evolved or devolved, depending on how you look at it. But any way you slice it, it's not good for the gaming industry as a whole. It's not good for society, and it's not good for console gaming. So I'm really surprised that more people don't talk about this and address this and see this as an important issue in the industry. But sadly, people just don't care enough. People are very neutral about this. You do have Nintendo gamers, and Nintendo is pretty popular. The Switch is selling really good. But I'd say at least 90-95% of console games do not have any local multiplayer functions whatsoever, just online. And I always wondered why both can't coexist. Why we can't have online gameplay, but if your friends come over, we can play together. Because I have my friends over a lot at my house, and I rarely play video games there because I feel bad. I'm playing the game online or whatever, and they're just watching me play, and that's not fun. I want to play with them, but sadly I can't unless I have a second TV or a second PS4. which is just not, it's not viable for me to do that. It's not worth it. So let me know what you guys think, though. I'm curious to see what you guys think about local multiplayer and split screen. Are you upset at all that it's pretty much dead in 2017? Or are you like the people who responded to my Twitter poll and are just pretty much neutral? You couldn't care less whether it was there or not. But I am curious to see what you guys think about the points I said in the video about console gaming losing its identity and society as a whole suffering from lack of local multiplayer options, and pretty much everything else I've said. If you agree or disagree, let me know in the comments. Anyway, thanks for watching like always. See you guys later.